Reb Michal. Hello, Reb Michal.
Hello, Rabbi Yafi.
How you doing? Okay.
Baruch Hashem.
I'm going to share screen. And here goes. Where did my... Oh, I know where. And here. Okay, so we've been through, welcome everyone. We've been through 7 plagues, and we now come to the final 3 plagues and the exodus from Egypt, the actual exodus. A lot happens in this parsha, which covers, basically probably about 3 months, 2 to 3 months. And among them is the first actual mitzvot that the Jewish people receive as a nation, as opposed to the mitzvot which they received as a family, which was circumcision and not to eat the meat around the sciatic nerve. But this really begins the mitzvot, and there are basically 2 mitzvot here, which include a third, the Korban Pesach, which includes the mitzvah of eating matzah on Pesach, telling the story on Pesach. It includes the mitzvah of the pidyon haben, redeeming of the firstborn. It includes, which is a subject we'll get to later. It includes the mitzvah of creating the Jewish calendar, because as we'll see when we do it, the Jewish calendar, when we do that section, needs complicated calculation, because the seasons follow the solar year, but the months and dates follow the lunar year, as we'll see. So there's a lot going on. A lot happens in this week's Torah portion. It's a long portion, and there's a lot of activity. But it begins with the final 3 plagues. In other words, later the focus moves onto Bnei Israel, onto the children of Israel. At this point, it's primarily still about Moshe's challenge to Pharaoh. And at this point, as we discussed at length the other week, God has hardened Pharaoh's heart. In other words, the plagues are going to happen, and the events are going to reach their climax. Yomer Hashem Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Bo el Paro, go to Pharaoh, because I have made his heart and the heart of his servants heavy. I've made them heavy. Again, the different approaches. What this means, Laman Shiti Otutai Ela Bikirbo. So that Laman Shiti Otutai Ela Bikirbo, so that I may be able to place, to insert my signs among them. At this point, the world needs to see the humbling of Egypt and the absolute power of the Creator. And why is this important? So you can tell your children and their children how I mocked Egypt. Or hitalalti can also mean I have cast guilt upon Egypt, and the signs that I placed in them, and you will know Keni Hashem. Again, the 4-letter name of God, which I am highlighting here, is the name of God, as God transcends nature rather than God hides within nature. In other words, ultimately, the Egyptians may long have forgotten these events, but the Jewish people will always remember them. And therefore, the Jewish people know that no matter how unlikely their survival or success seems, in the end, they have something greater than the normal rules of the game behind them. Vayavo Moshe Varo, O Pharaoh, Paro. So Moshe and Aaron went to Paro, Vayomru Elov, and they told him, Ko Amar Hashem Elokei Avram, so says God, the God of the Hebrews, And Ivrim, as you know, means the other side, across, because Abraham came from across the river. But it also means, as the Midrash tells us, that Abraham stood on one side, the whole world on the other, in his commitment to monotheism. So it reminds us that that the God is the God of the Hebrews, of those on the other side. You might imagine the whole world is on one side, and what can this people do to you? So remember that we have long practice in being on the other side and ultimately coming out vindicated. How long will it be before you humble yourself, before you submit yourself to me? Shalach ami, send my nation away out of Egypt, v'yavduni, and they shall serve me. In other words, the freedom is not the goal in itself. Freedom is all very nice, but here we're talking about what is better described in English as liberty, which is the freedom and knowledge to do the right thing. And so we're not just saying, let my people go, but let my people go that they may serve me. In other words, the purpose of leaving Egypt is not simply to be free of the oppression of Egypt, but to properly serve God, to properly develop themselves, to properly grow, to become a godly and lofty nation. Because freedom alone, freedom from oppression alone, gives no moral authority. Freedom from oppression alone gives us no good. It gives us nothing unless you do something with it. So there's two goals, one to leave Egypt, the other to do something with that freedom, which is to receive the Torah at Sinai. Sylvie, did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. We always love hearing from you.
No, if I made some noise, I'm sorry.
And don't worry about it. Don't worry about it the least bit. Because if you refuse to send my people forth, tomorrow I will bring locusts to your border. In other words, what is miraculous? Plagues of locusts come all the time. So it's miraculous. One was the scale of this plague. There were just a lot more locusts than you usually get, even though we had a plague of locusts this year, right before the COVID thing in Africa. But the other thing is that there was no locust plague known anywhere. In other words, there were no locusts marching north or south or east or west. They sort of appeared out of nowhere. And exactly at the time Moses says. And in terms of severity, this was actually the most severe plague because it destroyed almost all their foodstuffs except what they had stored. So this was really serious. V'chisat ein haaretz. And obviously, the one thing a king has to do is to provide for his people. A king who doesn't provide the basics for his people won't have their faith very long. So here...
2020 U.S. presidential election.
That was my phone talking to me. So there, what's happening is really interesting, which is that Pharaoh's powerlessness to provide even the most basic help for his people is revealed. They will cover the appearance. Ein means, it says the face, it really means the appearance of the land. You won't see land, you'll be walking on locusts. No one can see the land. They'll be so thick that you'll be walking on locusts. They will eat everything left over in the field, which is left over from the hail. They'll also eat up all the trees, all the leaves and fruits from all the trees that grow in the field. And the house of your houses, and the house of all your servants, and the houses of all Egypt, which and a level of locusts never seen from the day you've been seen on the ground until this day. And they picked themselves up and they left Pharaoh. Now, I can't show you the hail or the river turning to blood, the hail with fire in it, but I believe I have saved here. I believe I have a time lapse of locusts. So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about over here, this is the one plague we can actually, to some extent, replicate. see if I can find it. This is a nice short one. Okay. Okay, let me make it high quality. Oh, well, it's not such good quality, but I think it'll do the trick. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back to share screen. There, so this is what Egypt was much worse, but this is what a plague of locusts looked like. See the green fields in the background?
Triggered by the rains, an all-devouring army. Locusts.
See, this was all green, look.
Millions emerge from eggs buried in the sand, gathering into columns which may stretch for 10 kilometers. At this stage, they can't fly, only hop, but it doesn't hinder their progress.
So you see how it covers the ground? You can't see the ground anymore. You only see locusts.
These sweeping hordes devastate any fresh growth in their path.
They're pretty big, by the way. They're like, so they grow to these are baby ones, but they grow to like 2-3 inches long. I've seen them. Some like even 4.
After 5 weeks of steady munching, the infantry becomes airborne. These breeding swarms can cover up to 80 kilometers a day, but only while the food and moisture last. So how do you define a desert in Africa? There are places where less than 50 centimeters of rain falls a year.
Okay. So so you get the idea. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. Okay, so that is the idea. Stop share. And we get a new share now, back to the Chumash. Okay.
Oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's what the locusts do here. I just need to make this small so I can get back to the Chumash. There we are. Okay. So you see what it looks like. They just literally eat everything in their path and you can't see the ground. And this is a regular locust swarm. This one was on steroids and came exactly when God said it wouldn't go. And by the way, Bo begins a new section of the plagues in the Exodus. God is revealing himself even more because until now, God suspended nature. Now God takes nature and sort of plays with it. That's hisalalti. That literally means to play. God takes nature and bends it to the exact precision of his will in a completely statistically anomalous way. And maybe this is even a greater miracle. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, Pharaoh's servants already understood when Moses said it happens. Moses says it happens. To them will this be a snare? Let them go and serve God. So Pharaoh listens to them and says, okay, you can go. Miva mi aholchem, who's going? And Moshe says, now I want to address this today, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. What's this business with going 3 days into the desert, 3 days journey? It sounds like he's going for 3 days and coming back. The answer is that Moses and God are giving Pharaoh the chance to save face. He says, I only let them out for 3 days. Whoops, they didn't come back. Rather than have to admit that he's permanently letting these very useful slaves go. So the truth is, this was designed, though technically what he says, we're going 3 days journey. Never said we're coming back. At any rate, so he says, who's going? So Moshe says, we're going with our old, with our young, with our sons, with our daughters, with our sheep, with our cattle, because it's a festival for Hashem. And Pharaoh says, let God be with you. I can't send you with your kids. Mr. Crocodile tears. I see evil before them. Put the kids out in the desert. Who knows what's happened in the desert? Leave your wives and kids here. No, let the men go and serve God, because that's what you want. And they drove them away from Pharaoh's presence. Now you should know, because to the Egyptians, religion was a set of rituals done by men. To Judaism, it's about Torah. It's about a life in which we live in God's presence in our homes, in our bodies every day. And for that, the men, the women, the children, they're all in essence equal. And Pharaoh couldn't relate to the idea of a religion that includes everyone. He couldn't relate to it, because religion is a set of rituals used to appropriate the gods. The idea that God is resonating within you every time you eat, every time you wake up, every interaction with another human being, couldn't relate to it. And this is, and therefore, he hardens his heart again, because he can't conceive what kind of God is interested in the women and children. So, and with that, the stage for the plague is now set. So that is today's little bit. You're certainly welcome to send send questions or things in the parsha you do want to talk about. Just send me a note. Otherwise, I wish everyone a wonderful day. It's nice to take a refreshing Torah break with you, and all the best. And anyone who wants to see this, it'll be on our YouTube channel and on Facebook. Have a most wonderful day. Thank you for joining us.
You too, Rob.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.